Hello, all, and welcome back to another episode of Movies and Us, a weekly gathering place filled with conversations about movies, stories, and connection. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And today we're going to be reviewing the film Reptile. Sarah, kick us off with an IMDb summary for Reptile.
Tom Nichols is a hardened New England detective, unflinching in his pursuit of a case where nothing is as it seems, and it begins to dismantle the illusions in his own life.
All right. Let's start off with our one-sentence summaries for Reptile. What was your choice?
Mine is real estate is a dangerous business.
Yes. Nice. My summary is encountering a reptile in Petco is probably a more thrilling experience than this reptile.
Oh, it's so good. I love a burn that uses Petco in it. That's good stuff right there. Well done.
Yeah, I did not build any intrigue. I think it's very clear where my stance is on this movie. But let's
Yeah,
dive in.
you loved it, right? You were on the edge of your seat the entire time.
I was.
Yeah, I knew it.
Okay, let's start off with our initial thoughts of Reptile. And in this first section, we will not spoil this movie at all. And it being a mystery thriller, it seems fitting for you to go into it with a blank slate. So, Sarah, tell me your thoughts about Reptile. Did this work for you?
No, it did not. This is not a good movie. I I so badly wanted to like this just because I like Benicio del Toro. And so I want good things for him. I want him to continue to be in good films. He's been in a bunch that are super good and he's great in them. And so I was like, okay, maybe this can be good because Benicio is in it. Nope, he couldn't save it. And that is a sad, sad day. I'm kind of wondering if it's just time to give up on Netflix original films. Is kind of how I felt after watching this because it has all of the hallmarks of a Netflix original. It's a good idea. It's for the most part a good cast with one notable exception that we'll talk about. The story is overbloated and convoluted and not edited enough. It is way too long of a film. It should have been a tight 90-minute thriller instead of this bloated 2-hour plus thing. And it's trying to be something that's like super intriguing, super moody. Like this movie is trying to be like something created by David Fincher or Denis Villeneuve. Like it's trying to be something that it's not a good enough quality to actually be. And it was kind of disappointing because I feel like there's good elements in this. Like I felt like I was having to do a lot of work to pick out good things in this, but it just comes together in kind of a boring slog that's just over moody and kind of depressing. And like after a while, you're just kind of like, ugh, why am I still in this world doing this? So, would not recommend. Go watch something by David Fincher instead.
Yes. Go watch Seven, honestly.
Oh my
I was
gosh,
just thinking
yes.
about that the whole time. Yeah. Yeah, the Netflix original action and thriller movies so far, I don't know if we've hit a jackpot on that yet. But perhaps the jury's still out. Although you're perhaps advocating for the jury to just go home. Like we
I
are
mean,
not waiting anymore.
honestly, we've had so many years of this. We know
Yeah.
what we get for the most part with Netflix originals. Sometimes though, like if a director of like a certain caliber makes a Netflix film, then that's going to be great. But for the most part, they are middling to bad.
Yeah.
And that's just it's not great. Can we just call it, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I'm in alignment with you. This was it's rare for a movie to just be so poorly executed in my book. I think that oftentimes my issues with films that I do not enjoy, I feel a passionate perspective on choices that it made, but I can understand maybe that they have definitively made some choices and I just happen to disagree with them. Actually, it was fun to think about our conversation about the creator, and not a fan of the creator, not a fan of Reptile, but for very different reasons, actually, which is kind of fun to think about. I just feel like there isn't anything salvageable in this movie when it comes to character development, plot structure, the screenwriting, the dialogue. There's a few interesting cinematography moments, but on the whole, like a lot of the lighting in some of the shots just looked really strange. Like it looked like a commercial for like specific prescription drugs when they're in like the kitchen in the opening sequence with JT and his wife. Like it just this is really not well executed at all. And I think oftentimes there's something that's salvageable. It's like, oh, I could see how they're going in this direction, and they just happen to not be able to go all the way there. But in this case, it no aspect of it thematically. I don't think it has anything interesting to say. It's very tropey. It's it's not great on all fronts. And usually with movies, there's something that you're like, this was pretty great. The creator, the visuals are pretty great. It's got some half-baked ideas, but it's got some ideas it's trying to communicate and has feels passionate about. This one, I'm like, what is going on in this movie? I It was really difficult for me to get through this. I found myself completely disengaging, and I just had to grit my teeth and get through it because it was so boring for being a thriller. And it'll be kind of fun, I think, to talk about what aspects of how it's constructed really contributed to this not working at all, just being completely disengaging.
Can I share one of the things that I think
Yes.
contributed that's
Yes.
non-spoilery?
Okay.
The score.
Mm. Yeah.
My goodness. Like, and we talk about scores of movies all the time because they are such an important part of the filmmaking process, and they can do so much to create the mood and help us feel what the characters are feeling. Like the score is such an important asset in filmmaking. And I feel like what they did for this movie was just go like, "Hey, we want to create this gritty thriller, but we're not going to do any of that in the script or visually. We're going to try and do all of that in the score." And so it's just this heavy, ominous, like almost tedious score that just felt like such one note to me because it was constantly trying to create suspense where there wasn't really suspense happening. And so eventually I just felt this like,
Mm.
I don't know, like this malaise having to continue to listen to this heavy, ominous score. I was like, this is not how you make a film more exciting or how you create tension. This is how you wear somebody out from having to listen to this for 2 hours. Anyway, rant over.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That's so interesting that you noticed and observed the score so significantly. I think I didn't. And now I'm like intrigued to go. Well, I'm not gonna go back, but I'm intrigued to as to why that didn't stand out to me as much. Perhaps I was just trying to piece some of these details together, hoping that it would amount to something. And I was doing this like brain exercise of like, oh, we cut from this shot
Yeah.
to this shot, and there's this little detail in this moment. Perhaps it'll all mean something. And it doesn't. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
and I was trying to do that same thing, but with the music, because there would be
Ah.
times when nothing was happening, and it would be this super, like tense, ominous sound, or these chords that just didn't sound good together, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this trying to get me to feel? Like, what does this mean? Because nothing seems to be happening, and that happened too many times, and I went, oh, okay. I have to just disregard the score.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you bring up a point earlier, which is I also thought that Benicio del Toro would be the shining part of this movie, where his dynamic screen presence could at least make this somewhat engaging. And I think I lost hope for that about halfway through. Once we've gotten to spend a little bit of time with him, but the script is just so uninterested in making that character interesting. And as charismatic and brooding as Benicio del Toro is as a screen presence, he needs something to work with. And I was also surprised by that, because I think sometimes in a movie that just doesn't have a great plot structure and plot line and everything else is kind of falling apart, there's maybe a character that you can latch onto to ride it out. And I was grasping for him to hold on to, but even that, it kind of disappeared into thin air for me. So that I was surprised by, and I think a lot of it is due to just the type of scenes and content that he's given to even work with in this movie.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. He did not have a lot of material helping him out at all, which is a real shame. Uh
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are certain glimpses of it that we get, and those were the moments that I was like, oh, "Yes, Benicio, this is amazing." But it wasn't consistent all throughout, and I think when the rest of the film is so dreary and tedious and just a slog,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard for him to lift the entire movie up.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yep.
I did appreciate though that this character, he's he's this really like tough guy, but he doesn't have this bravado about him. So he's just like quiet and cool and intimidating, but you know that he can like beat up anybody in the room, but he's not going to like lead with that. And so I loved that Benicio was able to play that character even if he wasn't good enough to save the entire film.
Mm-hmm. I love that you picked up on that crumb that this movie left you. This is very good, because that is very true. There
Mhm.
is a like presence that he has in a room, and you see it especially, I think, in the scenes when he's surrounded by his coworkers. There's a authority and a presence that he brings into a room that is palpable. So that's great. That's very good.
I'm telling you, I was searching for crumbs. I was searching real hard, and I found one at the end.
Oh,
I'm not going to say it right now cuz we're not in spoiler section, but there was something that he makes a certain choice and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're an idiot." And then like I thought about it more and I was like, "You know what? I'm actually going to choose to read this as like a character revealing moment instead of just
okay.
thinking he's being an idiot." So like I was working really hard to try and find something good in this movie.
Searching far and wide for the
Mhm.
slightest crumbs.
Yep,
Yeah.
I sure was.
One of the crumbs that I was holding on to for dear life was the um, husband and wife dynamic between Benicio del Toro's character and Alicia Silverstone.
Mhm.
That's the most interesting part of the movie to me. Let's have a whole movie that dives into their relationship, because
Ooh,
wow, what
yeah.
an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
But uh, few and far between. So they gave us little scenes here and there to keep me engaged, because everything else was so uninteresting. But there's an interesting chemistry that they have on screen, but also I think that the scenes that are written for them is pretty neat. So that was my we're getting through this, gritting our teeth. There's something that we can hold on to. Crumb.
Mhm. I love it. That's a good one.
Right?
One of the few highlights in this film.
Yeah. Okay, let's include a spoiler alert here. If you haven't seen Reptile, you can check it out on Netflix before continuing to listen to the rest of this episode. Okay, I'm intrigued to know about what this moment was in the ending that was character revealing, that you've chosen to see as character revealing, but could have been just a Benicio, what are you doing moment.
Yeah, yeah. It's at the end after he realizes that the uncle is corrupt, as is Wally, and he takes that information up the chain of command. And I'm like, okay, idiot. If you learn that there is a conspiracy within your department, why would you go up the chain of command? Why wouldn't you assume that the chain of command is also in on it, especially when in a previous life you were also caught up in corruption and you had a corrupt partner? Like, why didn't you piece these things together? Come on, man. Uh, and so that was my first reaction. And then I decided that it
I
says
decided.
something about his character, and that even though he is in this very uh, dark place, this very dark profession at times, and even though he has the worst luck in the world, having been partnered with corrupt people and then gone to a corrupt police department, he is still choosing to trust. And there's something in Tom that makes him want to trust authority, even when all of the signs are showing him that he shouldn't trust it. And so I chose to see that moment as he is a trusting individual, and that this work has not hardened him to the degree that it probably should have.
That is such a good reading. I love that you've chosen this for him.
It's a very generous reading, but
It's very generous.
I needed I needed
Something.
something other than he's just being a moron. So here's where
Mm. So underneath that cool, calm, collected, hardened exterior,
Mhm,
there is a soft, trusting heart of
mhm.
gold.
Yeah, he's a big softie.
He is.
Yep.
Wow. I am just impressed that you were still very engaged at this point, or at
Oh,
least looking for
I was
things to be
not.
engaged with. Okay.
I was I was just trying to find things to make this more interesting. So I actually have a list of like little things that I want to talk about because I think that they're going to be funny to talk about.
Okay.
So I took a break from compiling my list to actually think deeply about a character.
I'm so intrigued what's on your list.
Oh, Jen, it's gonna be fun. I had to actively resist making like recordings while I was watching and like
Oh my
pointing things
gosh.
out to you because I was like, oh my gosh, Jen needs to see this. I did not, but we can talk about it later.
Okay, everyone. This is your reptile watch along experience, courtesy of Movies and Us. We will have all of these moments detailed out for you to look for the Easter eggs, the fun little moments to get you through what's otherwise an incredibly boring experience. We're here for
Jen,
you. We're
have
here for you, people.
have you ever watched Mystery Science Theater 3000?
No, I have not.
Okay, I watched that so much as a child, and that says a lot about who I am as a person. But so the whole like premise is, uh, it's in the future, so there's like robots involved. But a dude and his robot friends watch a very very bad movie together, and so you see the movie, you see the backs of their heads, and then you hear the audio from the movie, and you hear their commentary all at the same time.
Hmm.
And that is what I would like to do with this movie because I feel like we could have so much fun with this watching this movie in that format.
Yes,
It would
I
be a
had
great time.
I had a very similar thought when watching The Creator. I just think that we would also miss plot moments because you and I would be
It's true.
buried down some rant, down some hole somewhere. And it would be great. We would be a fabulous little echo chamber
Mhm.
of like, why would they choose this? It would be great. It would be very satisfying.
Yeah, I feel like with the creator, like we'd have to
Oh,
pause and
oh yeah.
talk about something and then we'd
Yeah.
have to like start the movie again. Whereas the
Yes.
reptile, you can just keep talking over it
Oh,
because
yes.
you're really not missing a lot.
Oh man. Oh
Anyway,
man.
I
I
digress.
was also thinking about while watching Reptile that you've just had a tough couple of weeks with detective experiences.
It's true.
Um and
Yep.
just wanting a good thriller mystery. And so far, many experiences have not delivered, and Reptile is another one to add to the bunch. This is such a poorly done mystery.
I know. It's a big bummer. And I also it's so funny watching these movies like this or True Detective, which we're currently reviewing over on TVNS. If you haven't subscribed,
Hmm.
go do that.
Yes.
Uh, but it's so interesting how much I'm realizing about how I watch movies and TV when I know that it's a mystery.
Hmm.
Uh, while watching Reptile, I was thinking about the movie that we reviewed a couple years ago, The Little
I
Things.
was thinking about that too. Yes.
Terrible movie again. But in both The Reptile and The Little Things, I am focused on all of the little details. Same thing with True Detective. I'm focusing on all the little details because I want to solve the crime. I am a
Hmm.
detective along for the ride and I am going to solve it. And so then
Hmm.
that automatically like sets up the movie or the TV show kind of at a disadvantage because I am paying so much attention to
Yep.
all of the little things. And sometimes it makes it hard for me to enjoy it because I get like too nitpicky and hypercritical. So there's
Well,
that. I'm working
that's
on it.
fair though. No, that's fair because in a mystery, when you are the detective, all of the little details matter. So
Yes.
the film should understand that like people are watching for every little detail because it will perhaps help us realize things that will be paid off later on. And I think a good mystery, a good thriller is able to help us focus clearly on the details that they care about because they're setting them up for something later on. This movie doesn't do any of that. It's just like honestly like bombarding you, raining down all these little details, little conversations, little scenes and hoping that at least you'll catch some of them, but it doesn't reward them at all. And here's my other problem with poorly constructed mystery thrillers is that I will hold out hope for far longer than I should. This is like a bad relationship. I'm like staying because I'm like, you there at some point, perhaps it will all come together and it will all be woven in this beautiful, satisfying ending. So I hold out hope for far longer than I should have. And then obviously I'm highly disappointed because I've held out hope for a long time. So if it's a bad movie, a bad like melodrama, a bad action movie, I know what you are much faster. But with a mystery or a thriller, I'm like, oh, perhaps this is all still laying the foundations for a really satisfying like gut punch ending where it's all going to come together. And that usually leads to a big fall when I am highly disappointed.
See, Jen, you, like Tom, are very trusting in the powers that be. And it just comes back to bite you.
It does screw me over, indeed. Yeah, yeah. I also went down this whole rabbit hole of thought
Yes, I'm ready.
around the way that mysteries and thrillers inherently, I think the bar of understanding how human beings think and operate is inevitably higher because the interesting parts and the joy of those movies is the twists and the turns. And so you have to really understand the way human beings think and what they're curious by and what their questions are and how to like either answer them but then maybe make reframe that from a different angle later on in a really fun way. Like the twists and turns inevitably require you to understand human beings' expectations and curiosities in a way that I think is it's a larger challenge. And so for the filmmakers, like I was thinking a lot about Ryan Johnson while watching this because he's done some really great screenwriting and storytelling and filmmaking around mysteries specifically in the past couple of years. Like the amount of understanding of the way human beings operate, I think, is just higher because the fun is in the twists and the turns. And to do twists and turns well, you have to know what people are expecting. So, for a directorial debut, perhaps don't choose a mystery or thriller because
Hmm.
you kind of set
Yeah.
yourself up for uh, a lot of expectation. And the other thought that I had around this was there's the trend now and the popularity of mysteries and all of the like true crime podcasts, and I know like thrillers in novels are really like in right now. I just think that it's a saturated market. People have high expectations, and you also have to fundamentally understand the way human beings operate. That's just a lot of things stacked against you. So perhaps directorial debut, unless you're going to hit a home run, maybe a mystery thriller is not the favorable choice, is my perspective.
Yeah, yeah, and if you want to do that, do your homework. You know,
Hmm.
don't just watch a David Fincher film. And I mean, obviously, the director and the team behind this did their homework, I'm sure. But it really feels like they watched Seven and were like, "Oh, cool. Let's do that but different."
Hmm.
And I think there's so much uh depth in studying mysteries and whodunits because we've seen them done so many different ways, but the general structure is usually pretty similar. And so I feel like these genre films, it's almost like when you learn jazz, you know, you have to
Yeah.
learn the fundamentals of music and you have to learn how things are structured together first before then you can go and break the rules. And I feel like genre films are the same. And like, okay, can you do something within the structure? Do you understand, like you were saying, human nature? Do you understand the formula? Do you understand how this works? Okay, cool. Now do something a little bit different. Do something inventive now that you have mastered the genre. And I feel like this director, this team doesn't understand the genre enough to master it to create something that's engaging and thrilling and all of the things that it's really trying to be.
Hmm. Yes, yes. And I think I would 100% agree with you that I think that they don't follow the structure at all. Uh, and they take out essentially all of the interesting and fun and entertaining and exciting parts of a thriller, which is
Mhm.
the conversion of conclusions that then get complicated later on by new insights, new discoveries, and that push and the pull, the like expanding out and then converging back and expanding out and converging back, changing angles of viewing the situation and the details and the facts, like all of those really fun parts. This movie does literally none of that. We have the same like three suspects. No new details come to light that really make one or the other seem more likely to be the actual candidate. And there's not clarity in what are the facts and details, what are our current working conclusions and hypotheses, and then ooh, actually we learned a whole new thing that has totally shifted our perspective. Like that push and pull back and forth, one creates a sense of pace and structure and progress forward, but also kind of milestones along the way of hitting those moments of now what are they going to do? It seems like they've got some idea of what's happening. So where could this go next? And those questions become really interesting, and then how they get answered. Uh, this movie does literally none of that. It's just like a steady slew of facts getting discovered from random conversations that are happening between seemingly unrelated characters to the actual case. Like no semblance of that structure is in this movie at all. And I would take a movie that is a little bit more predictable and you can kind of see it coming, but you're kind of along for the ride and it's fun, than this, which is just let's just bombard you with facts and figures and ideas, and there's no guiding force in any of it. You're just kind of along for this very boring journey, and we don't know how all it's going to mount together. What could have been interesting is if they could hit the home run and have all of these seemingly unrelated things all tie together in the end in an interesting way, but it doesn't do that either. So that journey then is really no longer interesting at all because you didn't even deliver on the promise. Right.
Mhm. Yeah, I while watching just kept feeling like they were throwing red herrings just left and right to try and distract us,
Yeah.
but, like, that is not the point of a red herring, you know,
Yeah.
it's yes, to distract you and lead you down the wrong path, while also showing you the right path at the same time. You know,
Mhm.
it's this very interesting plot device that, when used correctly, is phenomenal. So, like, Knives Out does this so
So
well. Oh
well.
my
Oh my
gosh, their
gosh.
The red herrings
Impeccable.
show up at the right time. They are the right things, the right forms of misdirection. Like that
Oh,
movie
it's so good.
is exceptional because Ryan Johnson understands what a mystery is. He understands who done it because he loves them. And you can tell because it shows up in the movie. And we don't get that in Reptile. And the other thing that I was thinking about while watching was that this murder is almost a vehicle to get us into Tom's world to explore something, but nothing is actually explored. And so we don't explore his character. We don't really explore the corruption of the police department. We don't explore, the corruption in the society in general.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not really, it doesn't really seem to have anything to say. So it's like, okay, you have this murder that's supposed to get us to think about something in this world, but you haven't developed either. And so it just kind of ends up falling flat, and you're just going, why did I just waste 2 hours of my life in this world?
Yes. At least True Detective, go listen to TV and Us, uh, our other podcast. But at least True Detective, it cares about the characters, right?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, the case is a vehicle for really exploring who these two men are, how they are different, how they're similar. And you're right, Reptile doesn't even explore the things that it seems to be interested in, which is who is Tom and what are the larger systems that it's uncovering, the larger corruption that's uncovering. It also doesn't really even do that very clearly at all. So then I'm like, what is this movie about?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We still don't know.
That that is the question. What is this movie about?
Wow.
I don't know.
But it spent 2 hours and 15 minutes showing us images of things. So something was happening, I suppose. Man. I did think about after watching this movie that it's interesting to me that the director of this Grand Singer has primarily been directing music videos up until now, and I was just thinking about how does that shape or influence the things that he might be leaning into when creating a directorial debut and his kind of style or his strengths in his craft. And I think that there are some moments, like the way that certain scenes are edited or certain shots that are chosen, that I can see some of that like sense of style that I feel like he's bringing to a movie like this that is so key for any thriller, is that creating of atmosphere and this being really like a mood piece. I think there's some aspects of this. It's just different when it's a 3-4 minute visual uh visual structure versus a 2 hour long story, right? And I think that's like an interesting lens to view a lot of our conversation about Reptile through, is the things that this movie does well. um how does that translate if you were to take like a 3-minute clip from this? Wow, there's some really interesting tonal moments that happen, but when you kind of play it out in a 2 hour long experience, a lot of that pacing and building and of contrasting tones and moments, I think, becomes even more significant.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And how like a lot of really good filmmakers have made that transition
Mm-hmm.
from music
Mm-hmm.
videos to full-length features. Uh and maybe it just takes some time, you
Yep.
know? And I think that's one of the good things that Netflix could potentially provide, and we've seen that from a lot of first-time filmmakers who have a very clear vision, and they're able to create something within this system. And it's not perfect, but it found a home. And so I I'm so frustrated that this potential place for people to be able to experiment and create really creative different things is also used to create crap like the reptile. Like, it's just frustrating.
Mm.
Why can't Netflix's powers be used for good and not for, I don't know, tedious and boring? I don't know. But I do agree that some shots in this are really gorgeous. There's one kind of early in the film where Tom and his partner are in the morgue, and it's this really like slow pan in on those two men as they're talking to the coroner. And I was like,
Mhm.
this is probably the most excited I've ever been to look in a morgue in a movie. Like, it was just so interesting the way that it was framed, the way the camera was moving, and it just made me want to learn more about what was being said purely because of the cinematography. So there were little moments like that where I was like, "Oh, this is good. I really really like this." And then we would revert back to, I don't boring, dull ness. So I wanted more shots like the morgue because that was great.
Yes. That's one of the things that's perplexing to me is that there are these shots that are so beautiful and interesting and visually framed in an exciting way. The one that sticks out to me is the blood splatter on the mirror shot in that ending climax sequence.
Mm,
And
mhm.
you see kind of the blood splatters and they're blurred in the frame, and then you see Benicio del Toro's reflection in the mirror. Loved that shot. Then there are these other shots, like in the opening exposition sequence of this movie, where um, JT shows up and he meets Summer and they're talking in the kitchen, and it's so overexposed.
Mhm.
You know what I'm talking
Yep.
about?
Yep.
It's this like bluish hue lighting, and then it's super overexposed, and it looks like a commercial for prescription drugs. I was so confused that honestly, at the beginning, eroded a little bit of trust with me. I was like, this is like not just poor quality shot. It's poor lighting. It's not even like, oh, this might be an intentional like way to create a mood. No, this is literally just an overexposed shot. I don't understand.
Yep. Not great. Also not a great way to start the film.
No. Okay. I am intrigued by your little collection of goodies that you've collected along the way.
Ooh, yes. Okay. So, number 1. We have learned in this film that if you want to be a good detective, you cannot be wearing an earring. Because every time Benicio goes into cop mode, he has to take out his earring in his ear. It's probably just a dress code thing, but I thought that that was really a funny little inclusion.
I love that you noticed these details. I'm glad that that kept you going throughout this movie.
Yeah. Hey man, I am out here paying attention to the little things. So I focus on everything that's wrong because you never know what is going to break the
Mm,
case.
mhm.
I watched too
Yep.
much Columbo as a child, and that is what I have gained from that.
Yeah, you never know when your earring might get caught in something, out on the
Hey,
job,
yeah, I don't know.
as you're running through some high, tall grass, it could get caught. Maybe on someone's sweater by accident as you're like,
It's true.
wrestling them to the ground. Oh
Yeah,
no.
it's
Oh
a real
no.
safety hazard. His little tiny baby earring.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Number 2 in your list of goodies. How many are there? 7?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We don't have to go through all 9, but
Oh, I'm so intrigued. We must go through all 9.
okay, great. Uh, these are in a chaotic order, so I'm sorry we're going to be jumping around.
It's
But
all good.
the second thing on my list is, what is with this film's obsession with kitchens?
Yeah.
There's a lot of focus on the kitchen, and I couldn't quite understand that.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a budget, some kind of budget reason. Like, here's all of these pre-built
Hmm.
sets that we have from other movies and shows. So take your pick of which kitchen you would like to film in today.
Hey,
No, I don't
I
know.
will accept that.
Although a lot of conversations do happen in kitchens in general in real life.
This is true. It is a place for people to gather.
To gather, yes, around a nice island with some
It's true.
snacks.
And there were
Yeah.
some nice islands in this movie. There
Mm-hmm.
were some nice kitchens in this movie.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And in real estate, the kitchen is often a key area where you can have all your design aspects that are
Mm.
getting shown off,
Hmm.
you know?
Okay, so maybe this was helping us to get into the mind of like a real estate agent because it was so focused on the kitchen, and that's what people buying houses are often
Yes.
very curious about first off.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And in which case, its success rate of doing that is maybe a party of one for people like yourself who
Yes.
notice things like beautiful kitchens happening littered throughout this movie.
Yes. There
Very
were a
good.
lot of really, really gorgeous ones. And so I was
Hmm.
like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah.
Wouldn't buy the house though, but it was a nice kitchen. Okay, so this is my third one is related to this, but I feel like we have just answered this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Uh, what is the film's obsession with pools? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of pools in this. We first meet Summer and her friend changing to go dive into the pool, and her dive was awful, by the way. They question her friend in the pool. There's a whole thing about Judy shooting the pool. Like, maybe.
Yeah.
But if the whole movie is just getting us into the mind of a real estate agent, pools are very important. It's a good
Mm-hmm.
selling point. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe we're once again just selling houses.
Mm. Yeah. This is very good. Yeah. So perhaps Reptile is just one large ad. Go on
Mm.
Redfin, look up some of these homes. They're on the market. You've now got a full house tour for many of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this
Oh,
is commerce and art
yeah.
coming together in
Wow.
innovative new ways.
What a beautiful marriage. Yeah. Watch this really depressing movie to buy a house.
Yes.
That's going to go well.
Don't you want to live in this home that is being sold by corrupt I don't know,
Yeah.
criminals?
Yeah.
I can't even call them real estate developers because they've got their hand in every cookie jar when it comes to the criminal offenses buffet.
Yeah. Yeah, they sure do.
Yeah.
It's rough. All right.
It would be great if you could watch movies and buy homes, like a click to buy situation. Oh my gosh. Anything, oh, what's the creator's name of like After Yang and
Oh,
um
Kogonada.
Columbus? Yes. Yes. I would like to
Oh,
purchase
yes.
wherever he set
Yes,
those films, please.
absolutely. Yes. I
Hmm.
do not have the money for either of those,
No.
but
Nope.
would love.
Yeah. Maybe we can start with importing them into our Sims game, you
Oh,
know?
there you
We
go.
could virtually
Yes.
buy.
Yeah. No, this is a great idea. I love this.
Oh man. Okay.
All right.
So,
My next one is
mhm.
this is this is the one where I was like, I need to record this because I need Jen to see this because I need to talk about this. But I did not record it. Did you notice the way that Benicio holds his pen to write?
No. How does he do it?
I I don't even know that I can explain it to you. But it made me confused as to how he was doing this. It's almost like the pen he holds it like parallel between his first two fingers, and then like he like turns his hand in a strange way to write. Like I don't know, instead of like the pen tip facing down towards the paper when he's at rest, it's parallel. It was very odd the way that he was holding his pen, and I could not keep my eyes off of it.
Wow.
It was very interesting.
This really, really must have captured your attention
It did.
in all other aspects.
'Cause
was
at
this
first,
was this also a character revealing moment for his soft, squishy,
oh,
trusting heart
mm,
that just wants to
wow.
operate within the systems of authority?
Oh, I didn't. Hmm.
See? Hmm.
Can I create a character revealing moment out of this? I don't know that I can, but that is
You
a good
managed with the
question.
other one, so I'm
I did.
convinced you can with this
I
one
did.
as well.
We don't have the time for me to just sit here and ponder to
Conjecture.
myself.
Oh man. So good.
Hmm.
Wow,
Yeah,
that is a good little
I was
detail.
very distracted.
How often are there shots of him writing in this? Is this like a fun little Easter egg to track throughout, or is this a
Yes.
one and done?
No, he writes multiple times.
Wow.
The first time I noticed it, he was using a big yellow highlighter,
Ah.
and so
Oh,
I
I
was
remember that scene. Yes,
yes.
but I don't
So
remember how he was holding the said highlighter.
so at first I was like, okay, maybe because he's using a highlighter, he's using it differently. I was trying to figure out an explanation. But then
Mm.
later when he's writing with a pen, he writes the same way. And I was like,
Oh,
this
interesting.
is this looks so uncomfortable. This looks like a weird way to use a writing instrument. But also it could just be me. And I might be the weird one who holds my pen weird. I don't know.
Yeah, this
But
might be a character revealing moment for you.
ooh, it could be. Okay, so Jen, I don't need you to watch Here's what I'll do. I will find that scene in Reptile and I'm
Okay.
going to take a video and I'm going to send it to you
Okay.
because I need you to experience
Okay.
him writing with his highlighter this way.
I think I'm so curious that this is worth giving the Netflix analytics data one more play of Reptile in their giant database. Like,
Yes.
I think this is worth it.
Excellent. Okay. So please watch and then report back. Am I the crazy one or is there something interesting here? The
Okay.
two could also be true at the same time because
Mm.
who obsesses over the way that people hold their pens? Me.
I just appreciate that so far your first three basket of goodies items have all been things that can easily be searched for throughout the film. So you just were so kind to think about all of our people that are listening that are going to watch the Reptile watch along experience
Hmm.
with us
Yeah,
and look for these little details.
absolutely.
How nice.
I'm looking out. A couple more are global things and then I think I only have two that are like isolated to one scene. But I
Okay.
think most of them apply to moments throughout
Globally.
the film.
Wow. Okay. Let's hear it.
Okay, so
Number
my next
4.
one is what is the obsession with the song Call Me an Angel? Because we hear that song so many times. And then I was wondering if there was going to be a tie in or there was going to be something around this theme of angels because Summer's ex, his artwork was of an angel. And so I was like, okay, is there like a larger theme here that we're going to want to explore? Nope, sure isn't.
Oh my gosh. I I I just feel like if I were a creator of mysteries, I would not would not want you to watch my movie. Is how I feel. Because you every detail I'm like, "Oh no, what conjectures will be made?" And how do we make sure that we are diverting her attention away from pen holding, song choices, like everything has meaning. Oh man.
And this is why Knives Out is so good.
Yeah. Yeah. It is
Like
true.
that is the caliber of mystery that I want. Is I
Yeah.
want Knives Out. Either that or be like complete and total trash. I don't really want in the middle cuz if you're total trash, I can just have a really good
Your
time.
brain can be off. Yeah. But if your
Yes.
brain's going, you are just not running on high alert and you are too smart for what this movie can deliver for you. Yes.
Yeah, I have a little too much of an obsessive personality for
Yes.
some of these things. And so instead of disengaging, I hyperfixate, which is
Yes.
very interesting. And this
That
is why I am the way that I am and why I bring these things to the podcast every week.
which is also why I want to watch terrible movies with you to see
Yes.
where does her brain go for survival mechanism in this movie.
Yes.
Yes. Like
It's
what thing is she
yeah.
going to cling
Yeah, man.
to get through this experience?
Cuz you know I will and you know it'll be weird and not what you're supposed to focus on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's so funny. You go to the details, and then my brain is just like, wow, writing a mystery means that you understand human beings.
Yes. It's very true.
And I go down that rabbit hole. Yeah.
No, that's a good rabbit hole to go down. It's much more productive than my rabbit hole.
But we all arrive at survival.
Yes, it's
That
true.
is the common denominator, is
Yep.
survival. And we made it.
We
Okay.
did. I'm proud of
Number
us.
5.
Okay. Uh, what is with Summer's giant tattoo on her spine?
I know. Wait. Okay. But then I could have misseen this moment. But in the next scene where she's lying on the bed at home after he gets back from his event that she didn't show up to, her back is facing him, and I don't see the tattoo.
I think she was wearing a shirt that is the same color as her skin.
Oh, that might be the case.
Because I had the same thought and I was like, wait a
Okay.
second, why would you include the tattoo? And then it's gone. What does this mean? But I think she was wearing a shirt.
Okay.
I'm
This makes
not
more sense.
100% sure, but I said that in my brain so that I could keep moving and not have to pause and rewind the film 15
Oh.
seconds.
But the thing is, they have this whole dedicated shot to the
Yes.
tattoo,
Yeah.
and literally it means nothing. They do
Nothing.
nothing with it.
It's so frustrating. Why? Why would you do
Yes.
that? Unless unless the actress actually has that as a tattoo, why
But the
would you
close up
add
shot,
that?
the dedicated close up shot,
Yeah.
that is the perfect summary of this movie. It's just like a long series of shots that make you think that it might mean something, but it actually doesn't. There's so many moments like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so weird cuz it's not in a good way. It's
No.
in a did you have an idea and then you scrapped it but then you kept the shot?
Yes.
Or like please explain to me the rationale. Why
Or
did we
it's
need that
just
shot?
this cheap way to be like, minute 2 in the movie and you're like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, moody." Like, cuz that tattoo also is is not just like a it's very uniquely designed, which
Yes.
makes it seem like okay, some, you know, designers like costume designer, set designer that thinks about these details, thought about what that tattoo was going to look like, and they specifically also had cameramen shoot that shot. And for that to mean nothing, I'm getting riled up. I'm frustrated.
Well, and
I gave you my brain power and I want to be rewarded. you know?
I think what's frustrating is that the more interesting thing in that scene is the bit of dialogue that her friend says. She says, "Maybe you're afraid of getting caught." And that
Mhm.
immediately is a way to spark intrigue. And that pays off in the end once we know what she's wrapped up in. So I'm like, why include this giant tattoo, make it the
Mhm.
focal point when it goes nowhere, when you have a better mystery creating thing in the same scene?
Mhm.
It's
Yep.
frustrating.
Yep. Agreed. But we can't explain her tattoo and we can't explain the tattoo that Rust had in the True Detective episode 1 episode either. So you're just 0 for 2 for getting your explanations for very interesting tattoos on characters that seem significant.
Well, and this is another thing that I do obsess about because I think tattoos are super interesting.
Mm.
And a lot of times, not all the time, there is a story attached to it. And so I want to know what the story is. Why did you get that tattoo? What does that tattoo mean to you? And it doesn't always have that, doesn't always have meaning, but they're just such fascinating pieces to me that people wear art on their body. And so I'm constantly, anytime I see a tattoo anywhere, I'm just like, oh, what does it mean? I want to know everything about this tattoo. So that is a thing that I just like naturally obsess about. And
Mm.
apparently, not every creator is as obsessed with tattoos as I am. And that's okay
Mm.
because it's
Mhm.
kind of weird.
No, but a creator should understand that if you include a dedicated shot in the first 2 minutes of your movie of this, like, very, you know, interesting looking tattoo on the character that dies,
Mhm. Yep.
that we will be wondering, you know?
Yeah,
See,
it's
that's
very true.
that's the human EQ factor that's key for making good mystery.
Mhm. Ugh,
Okay,
what a bummer. Okay, so,
number 6.
along the same vein
Okay.
is why is this movie called Reptile?
I don't know.
Because outside of Summer finding that really, really long snakeskin, which honestly is impressive to find one that's that
Yeah,
big, other than that, what is the tie-in? What is the connection here? I don't understand.
I don't know either. I
Okay,
actually don't
great.
know either.
Excellent. Okay. I was like, am I missing something here? Like I couldn't even come up with a plausible reason as to why this is called Reptile.
Nope, I don't know either, to be honest. Which I was so checked out that I didn't even ask myself that question because I was just so done with this movie. So I'm glad you've asked it and
Yeah.
can further confirm. Uh, yeah, I don't know.
And I think there is an opportunity for Reptile to make sense with this film if they change everything about it.
Oh,
Um
okay.
if if the character of Will is played by a different actor, uh
Oh yeah.
cuz Justin
Oh,
Timberlake is bad in this,
not good.
not believable as Will. Anyway, different actor, make Will more like slimy and make him very clearly a corrupt businessman, and he has sneaked by, he's slithered away, gotten out of these scrapes before, he's shedding skins like a defense mechanism, getting out of trouble until finally this detective captures him, and he is no longer free to slither about causing havoc. Like, I feel like there's a way you could make that work, but that is very much not this movie.
That's where my brain went to too. Is like basically they're all snakes,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't explain why you've chosen to call it reptile
Yeah,
because
that's true.
that is a very broad category of the animal species. There are, so many animals that fall into this
Mm-hmm.
category that are not snakes. So, like metaphorically,
That's
this doesn't
true.
work.
That's true. Okay, so he's slithery like a snake. He's a chameleon because he's able to like
Oh,
morph
I
into
see where
all
you're
of these
going.
different facets of life, but he's still sketchy.
Mm.
I don't know enough about reptiles to keep this going. I only had those 2.
We
So
need
that
to
is where
visit
I
the second
stopped.
grade class
But
in their animal unit. And have the second graders tell us how Will Grady is like a reptile of many kinds, many
excellent.
diverse kinds.
Excellent. That will not scare the small children at all.
No, not at all. Perhaps we should show them a movie that you've described as a malaise falling, like just like drenching you for 2 hours.
Yeah, let's not cause the children additional trauma. They have to live
No,
through enough.
yes.
We can just Google reptiles and keep the metaphor going.
Oh man. All right.
Okay.
And number 7.
Uh why don't characters in films and TV ever follow IT best practices? Because I don't know about you, but I've had to go through those trainings about like phishing and malware and like
Hmm.
all of that stuff and like how you protect yourself online, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things is if you see a flash drive just laying
Yes.
around, don't plug it into your laptop.
I had the same thought when he did that.
And so, like,
I was like, dude,
this dude who's giving you the thumb drive has like broken into places, he's hacked into places. Why in the world would you take that and be like, "Oh, I can trust this guy. Let me plug this into my system." No, that's terrible.
well, what's also funny is that it's the flash drive he gets from said guy after that man's been like was poking around his backyard and his wife had a gun pointed at him
Very true.
out of fear.
Even more suspicious.
Right. Like perhaps those are your red flags. And and
Mhm.
he's also a suspect in your murder case.
Yep. But we are
Choose any one of those details as your red flags. One of those alone is quite enough.
yes. Yeah, there are a lot of red flags about a lot of things littered all throughout this film, and nobody pays attention to any of them.
Nope. Not
We're
at
just
all.
breezing right by.
But it's funny when you were starting your sentence there, and you're like, how come none of these characters? And then what I thought you were going to say is, what I was thinking was, behave like human beings. Because that is one of the notes that I jotted down, which is,
that's good.
None of these people behave like a real human being.
Yeah, you're not
None
wrong.
of them.
That is a fair point.
But then you went to
IT.
Keep up to date with their IT best friends. And I was like, and we took a left turn here. We are on a different road.
You already know that I'm not gonna go down the thoughtful, considering humanity. No, we're not in that section anymore. We are in the stupid little things that you're not supposed to focus on.
The treasure trove of goodies.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In the Callan bucket.
In the Callan bucket.
There's always good things in there.
It's a weird bucket, but thank you for exploring it with me.
I'm just glad that you have developed as a human being to find ways to survive and cope with difficult experiences. It's very healthy.
by hyper fixating on things.
Yeah.
That's right.
The key is survival first, you know?
Hey,
you're
not wrong.
We made it. Okay, any other last thoughts about Reptile before we wrap up?
Okay,
this very interesting conversation.
My last little thing in my bucket is another thing that Benicio does all throughout this film.
Yeah.
And he is constantly flipping his tie over his shoulder to get it out of the way. And like, I understand why you would do that in like certain contexts. Like if you're eating or whatever, you don't want to get your tie in your food or you're handling something messy. But it'll be like, he's just like sitting at his desk doing paperwork and his tie is over his shoulder. And I really appreciate it about him and that it's consistent throughout the film.
Yeah, and perhaps he can emphasize now with women who have long hair and the high inconvenience of it falling everywhere in your face, in your food, in your line of vision.
Yep. Wow. So maybe he's doing that, number one, to make sure that he's looking sharp because he's a detective, got to be looking good. But number two, to help him better empathize with his wife, who does have like medium to long hair. So maybe this is just empathy inducing for him.
Mm-hmm. I just was distracted in many of the scenes with Alicia Silverstone where I was just like, it's Cher from Clueless. But she's much older. She's all grown up.
Yeah.
It's such an iconic role. And then also her facial features are so distinct. You just can't unsee it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, where is your like mid-90s inspired outfits? Okay? What's happened?
But it was really nice to see her. Like, I feel like she has been flying under the radar for quite some time. And she just like pops up every once in a while. So it was a joy to see her in this.
Yes. It's like seeing an old friend again.
Yeah.
Like, what have you been up to the past, 30 years? Since I last saw you. You were so youthful back then. Young and vibrant. And now you're playing a very different kind of character.
Very different.
She was the most interesting character by far.
Oh, yes.
By far.
Yeah.
Was fascinated by her.
Mm-hmm.
I would like a film dedicated to her and Benicio.
Yes. She's so interesting. Mm-hmm. So like maybe it can just be Benicio and her on the road solving murders. Because like she can hold her own.
She can hold her own.
She's paying attention. She's smart. She can be a real asset to him.
Yes. Okay. Well, this was our review and discussion. Such a funny conversation. I love it. Of A Reptile. You can find it on Netflix. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Movies and Us. Our name sums it up. We're all about movies and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories. Everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you hung out with us today. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you tune into your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review, letting us know your thoughts about Reptile. You can connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at moviesandUsPod, or email us at moviesanduspod@gmail.com. We will be back next week to discuss the film Past Lives. We hope you have an amazing week, and we'll see you next week.